Okay, you guys, there's no time like the present. And since I was already on the road with these videos, I decided to do the marriage part of this series. So, if you recall, that's going to be the end of this whole dating saga part of my life, the whole online dating, the blind dating, and all of that. I wanted the marriage information to be a culmination of all of that. So, this is what that is. For those of you who are new, my name is Sherry. Please welcome to my channel, which is Life Lessons Learned. And as you can see by this video, is part one of a three-part series because, when you're talking about your marriage, you're dating to get up to the marriage, and then what happened in the interim and the divorce, that takes a while. But again, remember this is life lessons learned. And trust me, I learned quite a few. But also remember the learning of a lesson is the application of it. So please don't come to me. Don't even make comments about I learned my lesson, but I'm still doing the same thing because that means you really haven't learned. Okay. Learning it means you're applying it and moving forward. So that being said, this is the red flags in my marriage. And as I've talked about with all of my videos, we need to pay attention to these red flags and at least dissect them and see where they could be leading us or the information they could be wanting to share with us. So I'll get started with that. If you haven't watched any of my previous videos, please do take the time to do that. You'll see the information that I used about going dating after marriage because I didn't date before. So hello, that was one of the reasons why I wound up marrying the first guy that came along. But I digress. So I'm going to, in this video, talk about how I met my ex-husband and what led up to the events of our getting married. And then in parts two and three, you'll see how that relationship kind of dissolved over time and what it meant for me and what it meant for my girls. And I can't tell you what it meant for him because I wouldn't know. So that being said, this is again during the time that I lived in Michigan. So I no longer live in Michigan. I left that life behind, thankfully, happily, ecstatically, and never regrettably. Okay. But because I was already doing the videos of the last one is when I finally fell in love, which didn't have anything to do with this relationship with my marriage. But because I was already imbibing in my rum and coke, I decided to just go ahead and do the marriage ones as well. So as you can see, I've replenished my drink and I'm going to get through this series. Again, it's a three-parter. So buckle up. I'm going to just give a little backstory as I did before to let the new viewers know that I didn't date in high school and I didn't date, of course, I didn't date at all in middle school, too young. And I didn't date when I was in college. I had one date. And if you haven't seen that video, when his live-in lover actually asked to go home with me that night. Please take a look at that one because all of these things were doozies. But we're going to stick with how I met my ex-husband and the events that led up to that. So at this time the in the city of Detroit, I had purchased. I was, I had bought my own car and was living on my own. And just so you guys know, my mother's philosophy was 18 and out. That means once you turned 18, you're no longer, able to live under her roof, which, okay, I get it. You're grown. And so that's what happened with me and my siblings. Now, just so you know, I'm a twin. So I have a twin, but it's a guy. So we're not identical or anything like that. And the night that my mom put us out, I had a younger sister. Well, can't say I had, but I had a younger sister that was 2 years younger than me. And she caught herself taking up for me and my twin brother. And so my mother put her out too. So she was just 16. So in her case, it was 16 and out, I guess. But I tell that story to say that by the time I met my husband, and I was at this point 20, I met him at 22, married at 23, and had my first daughter at 24. So, um, by the time I met him, I was already on my own, had been living on my own, had bought myself a new car, working, all the things that you do when you're no longer under your mother's roof or your parents' roofs. So that's what was going on. Now, at that time, the vehicle that I had was a brand new Toyota Corolla. So, and I've always had personalized license plates because I just like them. I'm like, I want to tell people what's on my mind. Now, at this particular time in my life, though, my license plate, because I guess I call myself being funny, said N-I-N debt, DEBT, because you're on your own, you're no longer at your mom's house, you're trying to pay bills and trying to make a living. And on my bumper sticker, I had a bumper sticker on my car that's read, I get paid weekly, Weekly, and then it's had a dash and it said very weekly, Weakly. So I thought, oh, this was cute. I got an in-debt license plate and I'm saying I get paid very weekly, haha. That's going to come into play later. So that's the reason why I highlighted that. So anyway, I'm driving in my car. I was on the West Grand Boulevard, which is a pretty busy street there in Detroit, Michigan at the time. I don't know what it's like now because trust me, I don't go back and I don't visit. But anyway, I so I was stopped at a red light and then this car came also pulled up alongside of me on the passenger side. So it was on the right side. My windows were down. It was the summertime. We listened to music. And it's funny because I was listening to If You Play Your Cards Right by Alicia Myers. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with that, but it goes, if you play your cards right, everything's gonna be all right. If you play your cards right with me. So anyway, that song was playing. My windows are down. It's summertime, and he pulls up alongside of me, and he's talking to me, but my music is blaring, so I didn't hear him. I just have to look over and see his work. It's his mouth moving, and so I turned my music down, and I was like, "Yes," and he was like, "Pull over, pull over. I want to holler at you." Now, I'm not the kind of person that normally would pull over because someone wants to holler at you. But I was like, okay, it's summertime. I'm on my own, what the hell. So we both pulled over into like a parking lot that wasn't too far from us. So we pulled over into that. And he took a look at my license plate and he was like, "Oh, that's really funny." And I was like, "Yeah." And then he saw the bumper sticker. So that, it's like, ha ha ha. And he he gotten out of his car and I gotten out of mine and he said, "You're really nice looking and I hate to tell you this, but I took one look at you and I was like, I got to get to know her." So I'm thinking, "Oh, okay, I'm flattered. That's really nice." So he told me what his name was. Not you guys, please don't be upset with me. He introduced himself as Reggie and I'm thinking Reggie is a freaking boy. Do you mean Reginald? So and you also, if you watched any of my other videos, you know that I'm upfront. I'm pretty straightforward. So I was like, "You mean Reginald?" He said, "No, no, everyone calls me Reggie." Now I'm just going to tell you that's red flag number one. Okay, if you're a grown man and you want to be called Reggie, but okay. And I know there was a baseball player named Reggie. I can't even think of his last name right now. But I mean, if grown men want to go by Reggie, that's up to them. But as a grown woman, it's up to me to decide, do I want to deal with this? But anyway, as far as I'm concerned, that really was my first red flag because Reggie means I haven't grown up yet. I'm still a little boy. But anyway, so he told me that and he asked, for my number and we got to talking and everything first. And then he asked for my number and I gave it to him. Now, remember again, this is before cell phone, so it's not like he can call me right away and see if I gave him the right number or not. But I gave him the right number because I'm not a liar. I'm not a cheater. I'm not a thief. Not anyone that's dishonest. So we exchanged numbers and everything. And I did tell him I was on my way somewhere and that, I needed to get to where I was going. And that was that. So that was really cool. But it wasn't, I want to say it wasn't even 8 hours later, he called me. So I was like, "Oh, okay." So he called me and said that he wanted to know, make sure that I remembered who he was. I was like, "Yeah, I just met you 8 hours ago." So I don't have Alzheimer's, okay? But we got to talking on the phone and everything, and he asked me if he could, take me out. So of course I said, yeah, that was the reason why I had pulled over. Yeah, we could do that. So we agreed on a date and time, and I repeat this in every freaking video that I've done. I don't actually let people know where I live right away because who knows how this whole thing is going to end up. So I agreed to meet him at a certain venue, and that way I could get to see how he, interacts with other people and that kind of thing. So we did. We went somewhere that was a public venue, of course, and I'm not even sure that it was a dinner type thing. It was more like lunch, or it was early afternoon. So we did that, and that way there was no drinking because remember I didn't drink when I was young. I didn't start drinking till I was after 60. So and I don't drink a lot then, but sometimes to tell these stories, you have to have your rum and coke. Okay, hold on. So we met, and this guy was witty as hell. He was so damn funny. And if you watched any of my other videos, you know that I like humor. I like for someone that has a quick wit about themselves, someone that can think on their feet and that kind of thing. So he was really a funny, humorous kind of guy. And a little bit taller than I am. I'm 5'7", and he was about 5'9", maybe 6 feet even. But he was kind of really thin, and I don't have anything against thin people, okay? Just let me say that up front. I myself back then was thin, but not thin in the way it, just really thin, like almost. You guys know how Michael Jackson was when he was really thin, and you couldn't believe that he can even moonwalk. That kind of thin, not like muscular or any of that. So I was like, okay, that was something else for me to think about because you don't want bones on bones. You know what I mean? I'm thin, you're thin. That's not going to work out. But anyway, I was willing to be open minded. So we'd gotten together and talked and everything and gone out, and it was really nice. So I was like, oh, okay, this is really cool. So as time evolved, we talked quite a bit on the phones. In fact, one time we talked so long on the phone that he actually fell asleep on me on the phone. You know what I'm saying? He was at his place, I'm at my place. And we were talking so long, and I'm like, you know what I mean? And I didn't hear anything. Not even snoring. He was just asleep. So I was like, oh, okay. I kind of overstayed my welcome on this call. And then later, the next day, he called me and he said, I am so sorry that I fell asleep on you, while we were talking. And he said his sister had come into his room, the room that he was in. So he was in his living room. And she said, you fell asleep on your girlfriend last night. And he said, no, I didn't. I wish I had. Because, of course, we weren't intimate yet. So I'm like, haha. But so that was another thing. As we got to talking and everything, I found out that he had, he was he had told me he was a laid off police officer. And at that time in the city of Detroit, the mayor of Detroit had laid off almost 25% of the police force. And it was an effort to get the budget under control and all of that. So he said he was a laid off police officer. And that was really plausible. I was like, okay, I get it. Because I remember seeing that, that was happening. No big deal. And so, because as a result of that, he said that he had moved back in with his parents. Red flag number four at this point, because okay, you're a Reggie. Reggie's a little boy, and little boys do live with their parents, so I get it. And of course, not of course, but during our conversations, he had told me that he had been married at one point, but he was divorced, and that was true. And he hadn't been married for long, but keep in mind at this point, I didn't know why he hadn't been married for long because no one really goes into details to that. Well, not everyone goes into details about that kind of thing. So I didn't think a lot of it. I was like, okay, people are divorced. Sometimes they're married for a long time, and sometimes they aren't. That makes sense to me. So I didn't think much of it. And you'll hear more about that later. But so no big deal. And he did not live very far from me. I lived in the city of Detroit, and he lived in the province of Highland Park. So Highland Park is like a city within a city, but it's more of a richer, more cultural community. So they had, their schools at the time. Again, this is back in the day, but their schools were better. They had a, police department, a fire department. They had their own community within the community. So that was really cool. So at one point, he invited me to, come over to his home to meet his parents, his mom and dad, and his siblings, which was fine. At some point when you're going through a relationship, you expect that to occur. So I did that, and it worked out really well, but again, remember, I'm pretty open-minded. I'm saying open-minded. I'm pretty upfront and not really in your face, but I'm not going to lie about anything. I'm not going to hold any punches or anything like that. And so I went to, go meet his family and everything, and they were having some type of a dinner event. So he invited me over for dinner, and there were going to be other people there, like cousins and other relatives and things like that. Now, at this particular event, I met his sisters, he had six of them, and his brothers, he had two of them, and then him. So it's nine family members, plus the mother and father, plus some cousins. Like, what the fuck? But anyway, okay, it's still all good. Well, one of his cousins was a guy, and this guy was getting into some MLM, multi-level marketing type deal, but it was with candy. So he was selling some type of chocolates, chocolate candy. And he asked me, he said, "Hey, do you mind if I have you taste test some of this chocolate?" Now, if you guys know me, chocolate is a good thing to do a taste test on. So he said he wanted me to try a few of the different, how they have the little, they're like circular and some of them are oblong shaped, different kinds of chocolates in a box. So he said, "I want you to let me know what you think of them." And I wasn't going to try all of them. I was just going to try maybe two or three and let them know what I thought. So I did that and it was really good. It was nice. And I told him, this one is crunchy, this one is minty. I like the taste, that kind of thing. So when I'm telling him that, my date's sister, one of his sisters, she was an older one, so she was older than he was, and of course older than me. And I should have said that. So this guy was 8 years older than I am. And remember, if you looked at any of my other videos, I looked really young, so I looked even younger than what I was. So people thought he was robbing the cradle, but I was like, I'm a grown woman. I'm a grown woman. But anyway, so his sister looked and he asked her to taste some of the chocolate. And she tasted some of it and she did not like it. So she looks at me in an accusatory way. And she says, "You told him that this chocolate is really good, and I don't think it is," which is fine. I don't give a damn if you think it is or not. He asked me what I thought. And so I said, "Oh, okay." And she said, "Oh, okay, you agree with me?" Or, "Oh, okay, it's okay." And I was like, first of all, he asked me what I thought my taste of the chocolate. You can't tell me how chocolate tastes to me. You can only tell me how it tastes to you. And everyone in her family looked, they were like, "Who is this heifer he's brought up here in this house?" And so I said, "Now, when he asks you your opinion, you're free to give it to him, but please do not malign the information that I've given him on my experience of it." And boy, she didn't like that. And neither did my date. He was like, "That's my older sister. We don't talk to her like that." And I said, "I'm okay with that. I'm okay with you guys not talking to her like that, but she's not going to talk to me like that." What the hell? Your older sister doesn't dictate how I like chocolate or don't like chocolate, so that was another red flag. But anyway, um, the cousin that had asked me to taste it, he's like falling out laughing because he's like, "Oh, this is the first time we've seen someone go head up with Janice." Oh, I shouldn't have said her name. But anyway, if you know it's going to be my ex-husband, it wouldn't be like you won't be able to find out the name. So that was that. And then later on, we're still evolving and getting into a relationship. Nothing, no other red flags. Everything is going fine. And everything is working out really well. So we dated for quite a while. And I've gone to, family events with him and he started to meet some of my family members. He met my twin brother. He met my older sister. We were, we were, and introducing each other to family, friends, and colleagues, and things like that. So all of that was going really well. Like I said, the few red flags that I did see, I was like, okay, maybe it's me, and maybe I don't want to use the word paranoid, but maybe I'm just being a little bit too cautious of that kind of thing. So again, no big deal. But in this part two of this video, I'm going to tell you some other major red flags that occurred. And I don't want to say I ignored them because I kind of take note of these things and then I look inside and say, is it me or am I being too picky or too paranoid or too cautious, things like that. So I kind of take a look at myself and say, with my experiences, which of course at this time I didn't have any, not with men. So I tried to look in the scope of that and see if maybe it's just me and maybe I'm just, you know, in a place that is different than most people. So all of that was fine. But I'm going to go into part two of how we got to a place where we were getting married and what happened in that marriage, and then we'll get to part three. So if you do get to let me say this. So as we go into the chronological order of things, I'm going to highlight some things that occurred in the marriage that would make a sane person go, "What the hell?" And then explain what my thought processes were at that time and how I was able to navigate things to a point where it culminated to what it turned out to be. So I'll see you in the next one. That one is going to be the same title, Red Flags in My Marriage, Part Two. And this was an 8-year marriage. So I'm just going to highlight some of the things that occurred during that 8-year marriage that led me to make the decisions that I made. And hopefully, you'll see how things turned out and why they turned out the way they did. So keep in mind, my whole mentality is everything that happens to us. I'm saying everything, but of course, I mean 99.9% of it, because not everything we can control, but most of the things that happen to us for one of three reasons. We either allow it, promote it, or create it. So keep that in mind because this whole time I'm thinking, okay, did I allow this? Did I promote it? Did I create it? And I'm also going to go over some things that happened with us as we had our girls and some of the things that he either did or didn't do that made me realize that I need to take another look at some of these things. So keep in mind, this is life. My channel is Life Lessons Learned. And always remember when I learn a lesson, it's learned. It's not something that has to be retaught or something that I need to take notes on or something that I need to go back and go, well, did I do this right? When you've told me or showed me who you are and I've had it with all of that, that's it for me. I don't make excuses. I don't get mad. I don't go for revenge. I don't do any of that. I move on with my life. I keep it moving, okay? Kim, Kim, I keep it moving. So those were some things that I did. And remember, the learning of a lesson is the application of it. So if you haven't applied what you've learned, you really haven't learned a damn thing, okay? Let's just be honest. Because if you have to keep repeating something, that means you haven't yet learned that and you haven't been able to move forward, which is okay. But be honest with yourself and say, I'm not ready to move on or whatever the case may be. So again, remember my mantra that was given to me years ago spiritually. Knowledge is in the knowing, but wisdom is in the doing. And isn't it interesting that knowledge is in the knowing? Knowledge has the word know in it, Know, and wisdom, Wisdom, has the word do in it. So keep that in mind. Knowledge is in the knowing, but wisdom is in the doing. And the doing is in the application of the lessons that you've learned. So get ready for part two of this. And some of it will be kind of hard to swallow for some people. So it is for mature audiences only. But again, we're talking about a marriage and the dissolution of it and what led up to that. So you're going to hear some things that were that may be difficult to hear, but hey, I went through it and I survived. What can I say? Okay, I will see you later.